Hello, everyone, and welcome. This is Not Ever. You can call me Not. You can call me Dave. It doesn't really matter what you call me. Just know that I'm the proprietor of this channel, and this is a brand new video series that I'd like to bring to you guys today. It is going to be based on the strategy game Gary Grigsby's War in the East, and I think it's going to be a ton of fun. This game is a behemoth. If you haven't played it before, it takes a Herculean effort to play sometimes. It's not a bad game. It's definitely not easy, and it has a lot of depth to it. But if you like games that have a lot of information, if you like keeping track of stats, if you like all kinds of really in-depth gameplay, you are hard-pressed to find a game better than this one, or games like this. There's also, of course, the Gary Grigsby's War in the West, and as well the War in the Pacific Admiral Edition. Both games are similar to this game in that they have a lot of depth, and they cover a theater of World War II. And they also have just a ton of replayability to them. So in this series, what I'd like to do is take a look at the opening, or not the opening, sorry, take a look at one of the missions, the 3-turn mission called The Road to Minsk. This mission is, of course, as I said, 3 turns, so it's not very long. But what I'd like to do here is to prime ourselves for an eventual full grand campaign. The Grand Campaign, of course, takes place from 1941 to 1945, the historical timeline for when Operation Barbarossa, the invasion of Russia by Germany, began in June, all the way to the end, either to the storming of the Reichstag or to the collapse of Moscow, I guess, however it plays out. So I'd like to really get to that campaign eventually, but before we can get there, I think it's crucial that we play a nice little game of this, and we try it out, not only so that I can refresh myself of the rules, but so that everyone out there who's watching perhaps for the first time, who by some fluke of grandeur or what you want to call it, happened to type in World War II strategy game into YouTube and came upon this video. So what I'd like to do here is just go over a couple of basic mechanics, and then we will actually jump right into the game itself. Also, I'd like to point out that, I'd like to mention that I'm going to be using a tool called Epic Pen. It is a cool little feature that allows me to write directly on the screen, and in doing so, it'll allow me to hopefully it'll allow me to, oh my god, what am I doing? This was supposed to go much better in my mind. There we go. So it'll allow me to like make little annotations on the screen like this, so if we have to follow lines of attack and whatnot, I can show you what I'm talking about so that I don't lose you in my own rambling nonsense. So let's go ahead and just jump right into the game. As I said before, this is a World War II strategy game. I'm not sure if you would call it a grand strategy game. I think you would call it more of something like a probably operational strategy game. You don't cover the production of units. You don't facilitate the economy of a country. You're just responsible for a single theater of war and how effective you can be in that theater. So we have to look at a couple things. First of all, let's consider the actual objectives of this game that we're playing. So this campaign, you'll see here, we have these nice little things, these victory points that show up. Let me get rid of the units there. So you can see all these little flags here. There are 3 red flags over here, and then there are these 4 flags over here that are multicolored. These red flags, they are Soviet. So that tells you that that's the Soviet objective. They want to control these 3 flags, this one here, this one here, this one here, at Brest-Litovsk, Kaunas, and Vilnius. That is their goal. And then over here, we have flags that are multicolored. You'll see that they have a gray flag as well as a red flag in there. And that basically means that not only are they German objectives because they're gray, they're they're also red flags because they're Soviet objectives as well. So that means that we want to try and capture these flags here. These are our primary objectives, these 4 flags. But at the same time, we want to deprive the Soviets of these flags over here. In order to do that, we're going to have to exactly choose the proper course of action, where to attack when, and what to prioritize. We'll get to the planning in a little bit. But before we can do the planning, we should probably go over a couple things as to what exactly you're looking at. In this case, you'll notice that I can zoom way out of the map, and a large chunk of it is grayed out. That is because this is a small mission, and only the tiles that are not grayed out are available, are the operational parameters for this mission. Basically, if this was the full campaign, we could move along this entire front down here, this entire front right here along the border would be all ours, even down into the Romanian border on turn 2. But of course, we're not there yet. We're just playing this little mission, so let's just focus on our little territory here. Each hex covers a span of about 10 kilometers squared, I believe. So one unit in this territory covers that 10-kilometer stretch. And you can see also that there are all kinds of different unit types. It's a little bit, if you're not familiar with NATO counters, you might be a little bit confused as to what these different things mean. A couple quick things I can help you guys out with is if we look at this as the counter here. So for example, we look at this unit here. We see that it has 2 X's up here. It has a rectangle that's purple with 2 lines crossed through it, and then the numbers 32 and 16 beneath it. So to start off, we'll look at these 2 lines here. The lines themselves that are crisscrossed like this, that refers to an infantry division or an infantry unit. The X's up here, that refers to the type of unit. In this case, the 2 X's note that it is a division. Down here, these 2 numbers, the 32 and the 16, are the combat value. So the CV, the combat value here, and the movement points that we have left over here, the 16. So this unit here is telling us that it is a division size unit because of the X's. It is a infantry unit because of the cross lines, and it has 32 combat value and 16 movement. Now, movement isn't exactly 1 hex to 1 hex, so it can't move 16 hexes, but the idea is that 16 points of movement isn't a ton. It's a little bit of movement, but you'll notice here the headquarters, for example, or even better, down here we have this nice little Panzer division here. It has 50 movement, so it is a 42 combat value and 50 movement. And then its rectangle is a nice little oval in there as well. On the top, it also has the 2 X's. So again, the X is telling us that it's a division. The armor symbol there telling us that it's armor. And the combat value here, so that's the CV, telling us that it's quite strong. 42, for example, compared to the 32 of this one over here. The Panzer is a lot stronger. And then the 50 movement telling us that it has a ton of movement, of course, because it is armored, so it's able to go quite far. Now, if you're also curious, you'll notice that these units here, for example, these purple ones are different than these green ones. The reason for that is the colors on your own units identify them as attached to specific armies. In the case of these guys over here, we have the green ones. All these green units are attached to the 3rd Panzer Group. That is the color of the 3rd Panzer Group. It is that lime green kind of color. And then up here, I believe the 16th Army is the ones that are in purple. So that kind of just is a good way to identify what units are attached to which, so that when they all get messed up after an attack, you can kind of sort them out into their own areas of operation. The reason that's important is because the distance you are from your command headquarters affects the efficiency of your combat units. If you're out of range of the radios of the combat units, for example, if this Panzer unit was to go all the way over here, way past Minsk and down towards the final objectives on the far east side that we can't see right now, it would be out of combat range or out of radio range of its headquarters, which I think is this one over here. So you want to try and keep them all together, and this kind of, the colors help you know what you have to keep close to what. Let's see, there's other things that are important are, we talked about headquarters a little bit there. So headquarters, of course, headquarters are what all units are based around. We have different headquarters types. If, for example, we can show you this right now. If we have the division is the 2 X's, then above the division we have a unit that has 3 X's. That is a corps. Above that we have a division that has, or a unit that has 4 X's. That is an army. And above that we have the 5 X's, which is the army group. So now the importance of this is that these units all fit neatly into the one above them. So for example, you'd have probably 2 divisions, at least 2 divisions in a corps. And then in an army, you'd have at least 2 corps. And then in an army group, we'd have at least 2 army. That kind of went off the screen and got a little sloppy there at the end, but that's basically how it works. They fit neatly into each other like those nice stackable cups that you could get when as a child that you're trying to fit together. So that's how they work. Army groups, of course, are the biggest ones, and then the smallest ones are actually, the smallest ones aren't divisions. So you can go down a little bit farther. If you look down here, you'll see that this unit is actually a 3 lines instead of an X's, and the reason for that is because it is a regiment. So the regiment is over here. It tells you that it is the 3rd 87th Infantry Division. The 3/87th tells you it is the 3rd Regiment of the 87th Infantry Division. That, of course, is important because what that means is that you can actually take infantry divisions or any kind of division and break it down into smaller components. Though the division is the main autonomous unit of this game of operational combat here, it can also be broken down into these little segments, these regiments, which can then be used to kind of shore up places or to add a little bit of extra firepower to a certain defensive line or a certain attack if you have to add that and you don't want to add a whole division. So that can be important later on, but I mean, for the early part, keeping your units together is probably what's going to be more important for us, so we don't really have to worry about splitting up our units too much. Let's see. We can also take a look now at the individual stats and tables of a unit. Don't feel bad also if you don't know what all the different, if you don't know what all the different symbols mean for different units. The Panzer is an important symbol to know. This symbol here is motorized infantry. You'll see that one quite a bit. And then, of course, the infantry symbol, which we've discussed. The other ones, the SEC here is security. This is an HQ unit, so that's, in this case, it is a core unit. You can tell again by the 3 X's at the top. And over here we have the 9th Army, that's another HQ, but it has the 4 X's at the top, so that is how we know it is a bigger unit. So, you know, these are all things you're going to learn if you play the game or if you watch it. I'm sure you'll pick some things up. Also, these units here that look like the 2 circles, like a Venn diagram kind of stacked together, that is that is an air base, a Luftwaffe air base. So those ones are important. That's what your units, your air units operate out of, and you need to move those around to try and keep up with the front lines so that your air units can stay on the attack and follow your guys into combat and help out when necessary. At the same time, though, a little strategy tip is that if you move them too far up and you don't have support for them, you know, they threaten to be overrun themselves if someone counterattacks, or more importantly and more likely, you will have a more tendency to run out of supplies from having to relocate your base. So it's a good idea to move them up only when necessary, but you have to kind of know when is necessary. That's a big recurring theme in this game, is knowing when to move things is necessary, but that knowing when is the very important part of that whole theme. So let's take a look now at the individual unit tables. So like I said before, this is a pretty in-depth game. If you click on any individual unit, any combat unit, for example, you will get a nice look at their table of equipment and their infantry division makeup. So in this case here, we have on the left side, this is the infantry's makeup, the infantry division's makeup. So the 26th Infantry Division, as it says up here, is made up of these elements. These are the elements that it's made up of. The ready column right here and the experience column over here is how much experience each one of those elements has, or the average experience of those elements that are listed there. So you'll notice here that we have 332 rifle squads. Try that again. 332 rifle squads in this unit, this infantry division. That amounts to probably about, I'm not sure, my math isn't the best. If I had to guess, I would say that's probably about 3,000 or so troops. I think about 3,000 or so just riflemen alone that are capable of attacking people. Then you also have other squads here. You have the anti-tank rifles squads, and machine gun squads. You have pioneer squads as well. You have mortars, anti-tank guns, howitzers, infantry guns, and finally support squads. All these come together, and that is what makes up this infantry division. If we are to go over here, we can take a look at the actual table of equipment and organization, and we can see what exactly the template is for this division, which is to say what it should have to be at full strength, and the actual forces that it has, so the actual ones over here and the template over here. In this case, you'll notice that we have 332 rifle squads for their actual complement, and our maximum, our full complement is 333. So we are pretty much at full strength. We have the 99% right now. Everything else at 100%. Everything else is exactly where it should be. So we are pretty much, I mean, for all intents and purposes, this is a full strength rifle squad. We X out of that there, you come back to here and we can see that there are a couple different things that happen over here in this left column. So we have, of course, the morale of the unit. That is important for combat. The more morale a unit has, the more efficient it is in combat, the less chance it has to break, I believe, to be shattered. And also down here, we have the headquarters that's attached to it, and we have the overall headquarters that it is underneath. So in this case, the headquarters above this unit, directly above it, is the 6th Corps, and then the headquarters that is in control of the Corps and the Army that are above this unit is Army Group Center, which is the highest command in the chain right now. Down here, you'll also notice that it says these things are very important, actually. Supply, fuel, ammo, and support. These are also over here. You can see these in these 3 lines here lead to these 3 things right here. Now, the top one, of course, is supply. The second one is fuel, and the third one is ammo. Looking at this thing right here, the one on the left is the number that we actually have, and the one on the right is what we need. So you can see here that we have 169% supply compared to what we need. So we have way more supply than what we need, which tells us that we've been stockpiling for this attack, for this assault, for this invasion. So that's good. And then down here we have similar with ammo. We have way more ammo than we need, which is going to be good. You'll notice that we don't actually have enough fuel, or at least we don't have enough fuel for what we need. But we also only have if you look up here, vehicles, we only have half of the vehicles, or about half of the vehicles that we need in order to be a fully equipped, fully stocked on what we need. The vehicles for infantry divisions, I believe, are mostly to do with like towing anti-tank guns and howitzers and stuff, this kind of stuff down here. So, I mean, you don't really need vehicles so much. You don't really need fuel as much for infantry divisions, though it is helpful, I'm sure. It's more important a lot for like mechanized infantry, for motorized infantry, for things like that, armor especially as well. So that's what's really important. And then down here we have a couple more options. The assign form option is very important for us. If we click that, you'll see that it brings us to this little thing, pick support unit type. We have access to 3 different things we can choose. We can choose the Flame Panzer Battalion, the Self-Propelled Flat Company, or the Pioneer Battalion. In choosing one of these things, we will add those, I'm sorry, that was a mistake. We will add those, that company or battalion directly to this infantry division, and it'll stay with them for however long we choose to leave it on this unit. The reason you would do something like this is to take support units from your parent headquarters, for in this case the 6th Corps. We would try and take this, so let's say we try to take this Pioneer Battalion, which currently is attached to the 6th Corps. We would add that to our 26th Infantry Division, and then that would hopefully help us out in combat in the future. This is very helpful if, for example, you have access to Pioneers. What you might be trying to do is trying to cross a river that is being fortified. You might be trying to get an advantage in a city, or you might be trying to even, I think fortifications are also, Pioneers are effective against those as well. Of course, if you wanted to take fortifications on and you had access, you could also try and take a Stug Battalion, which would be like an assault gun unit that you could try and apply to your infantry division and make them more effective against fortifications. We could also take this flat company up here. That would make us more deadly to aircraft that are trying to harass us or do recon on us or anything like that. So knowing when to attach support units is a very important part of this game as well. It can often make a breakthrough very successful, or it can make a defense very difficult to dislodge. It can be definitely a vital instrument and a vital tool to have in this game. There are a couple more things down here. So if we split our unit, we can merge it here, and we can try and bring all the components back together and make it back into an infantry division together. And we can also try and motorize this unit, which will throw it on a bunch of trucks, as many trucks as we have in the supply pool, and we'll try and send them really quickly towards a goal or objective. That is very vital. For example, if someone's trying to break through and you have to motorize your units to send them to a faraway place so they can get in position in time to stop an attack, that can be great. But of course, that saps some of your overall motor pool, which, for example, up here we have 113,000 trucks in the motor pool right now. So if we were to motorize this unit immediately, we would take out 1,000 of those trucks right away. It doesn't seem like a lot, but if you're doing that to a bunch of different divisions, you can run out of trucks pretty fast. So that's a quick overview of the actual unit and what you can expect. We'll take a look now. I think we've discussed the victory points. We've discussed the units themselves. Might as well, I guess, go ahead and we'll just discuss attacking. So this won't be a very efficient attack, but we'll try and make it all work now. So right now you can see we have the 6th and the 26th Infantry Division selected. We can select this one as well. And of course, if we do that, you'll see that we're no longer able to attack this unit. That is because headquarters can't attack. They are not allowed. But with these two attacks, these two guys these two guys selected, we can attack because they're both combat units. You'll see here again, going back to what we talked about with the combat value, you'll see that this is a combat value of 9 and this is a combat value of 10. So they're both not the most efficient or effective units to take into combat, but they're still better than what we anticipate the Soviet defenses to be here with a combat value of 1. If we hover over that, it'll say, I believe, what the detection value is. So the detection value on this is 6 out of, I believe, a possible 9. So we have some information about the units. We're not very confident in how effective they'll be, but if you look down at the bottom of the screen, that orange bar, it gives you a rough idea of what to expect. There's about 214 rifle squads, I think, and there's some AFVs. There's a couple heavy guns, a couple anti-tank guns, and some other things as well, flat guns. So they have a couple things, but nothing that's really too disconcerting. So let's go ahead and you know what, I'm feeling brave, so we're going to just select one unit here, and you'll notice if I just hover over it, I get a little icon that looks like a arrow and an explosion beneath it. That is what is called the hasty attack icon. So if I was to go ahead and just click the attack button right away, it would start an attack, and like this, it's as you can see, the defending force is held. Now, in that instance, so we can actually go up here, look at the battle. In that instance, the defending forces held. The odds of winning were 1.6 to 1. We had a combat value of 58, a modified combat value of 60. They had a 24 and a modified of 35. So that may sound like all kinds of gibberish to you, and you're not wrong. Honestly, to me, it sounds like gibberish too. I don't know exactly how the modified combat value works. I think it's dependent on the support units you have, the supplies, the ammo of the units that you're attacking with specifically, as well as the leader skill, within your radius of command, headquarters, and stuff like that. There are definitely a couple things that go into it, so it's kind of a deep number to get into. But you'll also notice that despite the fact that we lost that encounter, we didn't push them back. The defending forces are said to held here, so we can also see how many casualties were dealt to both sides. In this case, it says we attacked with 20,000 men, 224 artillery, and 0 armored fighting vehicles. The men over here, they defended with about 10,000, 160 artillery, and 9 AFVs. On our side, we lost 141. We lost 2 artillery, and we didn't lose any AFVs. We didn't commit any, of course. They lost only 5 men, 3 artillery, and 4 AFVs. So we definitely didn't push them back. We didn't really come out on top either. But I mean, for an attack, we lost like maybe, what is that, like almost 1.4 times the amount of men that they lost, which isn't too bad for an attacking maneuver against a fortified position. And of course, over here, we can see that it was a fort. So the fort was went from 2 down to 1. So even though we didn't take the objective, we did damage the fort enough to drop it down to a level 1, meaning that they'll have less efficiency defending next time they're attacked. We can also see here there's an air combat as well. They lost 6 fighters. They lost 3 bombers as well. We didn't lose anything. And we had quite a few fighters at 118 to their 10 fighters and 4 bombers. So that's a quick overview of what happens when the actual combat goes down. It calculates all kinds of different things. The combat values, I believe it also, I believe it also, what's the word I'm looking for? I've just forgotten my words. Oh my heavens, that's not a good sign at all. It also calculates the distance between the targets are between. It calculates the the supply that you're in, if you're in good supply, if you have enough units to fight back, if their morale is high, if their morale is low, the fatigue, the experience of each unit, and you can look at most of that stuff down here. So it says here that our average morale was 80, we had 77 experience average, and they had 47 morale and 37 experience, as well as quite a bit of fatigue. So despite the fact that we tried to attack them and we had better units, quote unquote better units, we still lost that fight. And one of the reasons we lost that fight was because we tried a hasty attack. A hasty attack basically takes your unit and plunges it into combat with little preparation for the actual attack. It's the equivalent of saying, hey, you, go take that hill right now. And someone just has to go and do that job. On the alternative to that, what you can try and do is what is called a deliberate attack. So if we hold shift here, you'll see that it turns from a hasty attack into a single explosion attack. You'll notice here also that we only use one movement point. So it went from 16 to 15. The advantage of using a hasty attack is that you use less movement when attacking. But when you attack with the deliberate attack, you use more movement, but it's a more effective attack. So let's try again. Now that the fort has been weakened, we'll try with the deliberate attack, and we'll see what the result is. So we reduce the fort to 0, and we force them to retreat. You can see here they moved. You can see right here, actually, they were moved from this tile to here. And I mean, I didn't probably need to draw that, but I wanted to use the pen, and I don't regret it at all. So they moved back, we took the spot, and now we'll see what happens here. I don't think we're going to move into the position. I think that because there are guys around it, we won't move in, but I'm not exactly sure. I haven't played this game myself in a little while, getting back into it, so it's going to be interesting to see what happens. So let's just go ahead and unpause that. We'll see what happens. We had very good odds of winning that fight, though, and the reason we had such good odds, the reason that our combat value was so high, was because we had the deliberate attack, which helps out a lot. So let's go ahead and exit that. All right, now we have, of course, these two units. Oh shoot, that was the wrong button. My mistake. So we have these two units here. You'll notice if you look at them, the 26th Infantry Division, which is the one we used to do the deliberate attack, went from 16 movement points to 13. So they lost 3, whereas the 6th Infantry Division lost only 1. So that's the difference between a hasty and a deliberate attack. There is a difference, and it is important to know that, because sometimes you just want to throw everything you got. You have to win a battle. It's important to do a deliberate attack. But if you want to just kind of scout out, and if you get lucky with a breakthrough, then go for it. That's when you want to do a hasty attack. Or if you're at the end of a long march and all you can muster is a hasty attack, then that's when you want to do that. So now what we're going to do is going to move these two guys up right here into this territory, this hex. Need to stop calling it a territory, probably, but still. So we move these guys up, and they lose a little bit more movement again. And now you can see they can attack again. They can attack against these guys over here that were forced to retreat. So because they were forced to retreat, they'll probably be in a weaker position. They won't be fighting from a fort. So they won't be fighting from the defensive area. And we can also hope that they'll have sustained some casualties, which will also make them a little bit weaker overall than us, even though they were weaker than us to begin with. But we'll come back to that guy in a minute. Until then, we're going to instead take this guy here, the slower of the two, the 26th, and we're going to attack this unit here. These two black bars with the rectangle in the middle signifies it as a fort unit. So fort units are important for a couple reasons. Later on, they become a lot more important. At the beginning, the Soviets have a lot of fortified units along the border, but they are mostly just useless, and you can trample right over them. It's not a big deal. All right, so we got that guy out of the way. Now let's take a look at our Panzer Division here. We're going to select the 20th Panzer Division, and we're going to try and move all the way over here. You'll notice, though, that we go from 50 movement down to 32 movement, which is a ton, considering that we're only moving three hexes. The reason for this is the zone of control that each unit has over the areas around it. So if we wanted to move all the way over here, it would cost us 32 movement points. Now we can do it, but that means that it's going to be very expensive, and we might not get as much movement as we want out of these units. So instead, what I'm going to try and do is get rid of this area right here, this hex. I'm going to try and free up this hex from a zone of control by destroying both this unit, or at least forcing these two units away from this hex so that my Panzer can break through this way. So let's try and take this guy right here. We'll take these two units. We'll attack with 2 units with a deliberate attack, and we'll try and crush this infantry division right here. Now we easily overpowered them. We had a combat value of 217. They had a combat value of 12. It was basically complete slaughter. We lost 20 men. They lost over 3,000, 41 pieces of artillery, 6 AFEs, and that forced them to be routed. Now, routed units can't act again on their turn, I believe, and they have to spend at least a couple turns trying to rebuild their morale and trying to no longer be shattered, as well as perhaps getting some reinforcements into their area, their roster. So that was easy peasy. There, we did exactly what we wanted to do, and now we only have one more. We only have one more infantry division targeting this hex with its zone of control. So we'll take these guys over here again, and we'll attack. We'll put at, because this was the one that was attacked before, we're going to take the one that has the less movement. We're going to basically use this infantry division as our heavy hitter. We're going to take it and make it do another deliberate attack, and we should win this one. Now that division also was routed. It was routed for a couple reasons. In that case, it had already lost one combat battle over here in this territory, and it was not in a good position to defend itself, and it didn't have a very good combat value to begin with. So we easily ran over that one, 75.5 odds to 1 of winning that battle. They lost over 4,000, we lost 122, so definitely in our favor. Now, if you look at the Panzer Division here, you'll notice that it's no longer going to cost us like 18, or 18, I guess. I can't remember how much it was. I think it dropped us down to like 38. It's going to no longer cost us 12, I guess. It's only going to cost us, what is that, 6 movement points to move over here to this tank unit. Now, that is very important because our objectives here, if I can remember the buttons that I'm trying to press, hold on. So, for example, our objectives here are so very important. We want to, of course, take Minsk as possible, or take Minsk and as these objectives. If I can just do this. Oh, if I can just do this, though. We want to take Minsk as well as these objectives over here. That is our main objective. But we only have 3 turns to do that. So we want to try and get as much movement as we can out of this panzer group up here and the teal panzer group down here. So our main goal is going to be try to make breakthroughs. And this, of course, will be the main goal also in the full campaign. What we want to do is go ahead here and drive as hard as we can out of this pocket, or out of this this line of defense, and into Russian Soviet territory. So in this case, what I would even consider doing is trying to flank the panzers all the way up here and try to take Vilnius, and maybe we could have the infantry come and grab Kaunas up here, so we can kind of even bypass this unit right here, bypass that tank, and flank all the way down over here, hopefully ending somewhere in here at the end of the turn. I don't think we'll be able to reach Minsk, and in fact, I don't want to reach Minsk. What I'd like to do is even pocket all of these units, pretending, of course, this would be a continuation of another game, that there would be a continuation of this game after. It would be a good idea to pocket these units, but for right now, you know what, that might be too much. For right now, we'll just try and focus on getting towards Minsk as quickly as possible, and if we can get, within this area, like we said, that would be great, and then in the next turn we can hopefully take it, or we can even start driving all the way over here to try and take these objectives, if we can do that, if we can manage that. So that's going to be our goal, and that's why we wanted to open up some room over here for our panzers to really gallop. So we're going to take, let's see, our 20th Panzer Division right now. We're going to try and send him, well, you know what, actually, it might make more sense to go right here and try and just dislodge this Panzer Division right here. I was going to try and avoid it, but we'll do a hasty attack. We've got a lot more combat value than they do. At least we anticipate that we do. Of course, that 3 combat value to that 15. So we're going to do a hasty attack and see what happens. We tried the hasty attack, and it turns out they held. We're going to try another hasty attack here and see what happens. And that time we did get them to retreat, so that's good. But now we've wasted a couple points of movement. It might have been better to just go for a deliberate attack instead. So now we will... I think we're going to move up again. Basically, what I want to try and do is get this Panzer Division right here, force this Panzer Division to move up either this way out of my way so that I can come up here and flank down this way, or make him go down here. So we'll try another attack. We'll see what happens. We don't want to waste too much movement, so let's go ahead and we'll just try and strike out here with a deliberate attack. We are attacking across the river, so that'll give us a little bit of a disadvantage, I believe, but hopefully we can do it. And there we go. We actually routed it, so that's great. The Panzer Division ran all the way up here to its friends up there, and now we have a lot of room to maneuver. So we'll send our Panzer way over here, way out on the flank, and we'll actually force them right off Vilnius. I think there were only headquarters that were guarding that, so that's great. Now, this Panzer unit has moved quite a bit already, so we're going to just leave him here, I think, in this town for now, and we'll now take our other Panzer unit and start to work our way down toward Minsk. Well, you know what, actually? Now that I'm looking at it, it looks quite good, considering that, for example, up here, the only things that we have to fight off would be a couple headquarters and a security unit over here. I think Panzers would be quite well suited to that. We could just force ourselves with the 3rd Panzer all the way over here towards Vitebsk, and hopefully we can capture that on the next turn, if not this turn. In fact, I don't think we'll be able to get it this turn, but hopefully next turn we'll be able to get that one. So let's take a look here. Maybe what we'll do, in fact, is we will just come back here. We'll check this Panzer. We'll send him... Actually, before we do that, let's see if we can't get some infantry divisions up towards Kaunas over here. So we have 3 infantry divisions here. We're going to attack with a single one. We're going to do a deliberate attack again, and we'll try and dislodge this unit right here. And they are routed. Wow, so that was a great attack by that division. The 121st Infantry Division crushing the other one. And now if we can hopefully get a little maneuver up here. I think these are only headquarters, so we'll try and move up. No, there's actually an infantry unit there, I think, or a something. There is an infantry, a rifle corps, and a artillery brigade. So let's try another deliberate attack on these guys. We'll try and clear the way for the path to Kaunas. And they are routed as well. That artillery brigade routed. So this is what you're going to see a lot of early in the game, especially when you're fighting the Soviets. Their units are not in very good shape. They don't have a lot of morale, and it's very easy to push them out of the way. You'll notice here also, this is an example of terrain. Pardon me, of terrain affecting your movement. So if I were to move here into the swamp area, I would only have 1 movement left. If I was to move into this clear area, I would have 2 movement left. The reason, of course, being that swamps are harder to navigate, harder to maneuver through. So you want to try and stay to clear terrain when possible if you're trying to exploit a breakthrough for maximum distance range. So for now, we'll just move up to here. And we actually are able to muster one last hasty attack. But because this hasty attack would be against a infantry division here, that is, sorry, a motorized infantry division that is across a river and inside of a city, I think I might hold off on that one for now. We'll see what we can do with these 2 guys first. So we'll move these guys, I think, over... Move them over here into the swamp. I would like to move them over here, but that honestly takes up too much movement. With only 3 movement left, I think they would actually be able to do 1 deliberate attack. But I'm going to try and gamble on the swamp here. So let's move these 2 guys into the swamp, and we'll see if we can make a little ogre hut for them while they relax here, ready to get going. We can do a deliberate attack, so let's try that. We'll try and get out of these. We'll try and get these guys out of the city and see if we can't take it over. And we actually managed to rout that motorized division, so that I did not expect. I thought we'd push them back. I didn't think we'd push them right out. So now, unfortunately, though, you'll notice that we don't have enough movement left to get into the city. If we could perhaps take this infantry division up here, and now because there is no motorized division here, threatening this let me just prove this here. Threatening this hex here, or this hex, we were able to move this division to the city. That is the advantage of using units to clear a path, and how you really want to do a breakthrough for this. So if I can just go ahead and, whoops, select this guy. Here we go. So now we're going to move him into Kaunas, which is exactly what we wanted to do. And from this angle, it looks like it's not going to be very likely for them to go ahead and push back. I mean, they've got 1 infantry division over here. I wouldn't expect them to be able to take the city from us anytime soon, especially with their morale as low as it is. Now, now that we have that, we've taken that city, so let's go back to our panzers. We're going to try and move up this way. We'll try and get him as close to Vitebsk as possible. So let's move him all the way over... over here, perhaps. We'll try and maybe dislodge those headquarters. So we'll get him way out on the flank here, all by himself. The danger, of course, of moving moving units too far ahead is that they could be cut off. And there we just happened to capture a ton of fuel, I believe. So the problem here is that it's a threat. It's very easy for this example. This is a perfect example, actually, to demonstrate how weak this hex is right here. This unit could, on its next turn, move down here and secure this hex. By doing so, that would cut off our only line of supply that connects these units here. Or more importantly, this unit from all the way back to its behind its own friendly lines. So you have to be very careful with moving your units. You don't want to move them too far up, or like we've just done there, we are under threat of being taken over next turn, or we're being cut off next turn by this infantry division up here. But we're going to move our guy out there. We're going to move our panzer out there. And now what we'll probably do is move a motorized division in this nice little hex right here. We might even move them up here. And by doing this, what we're doing is we're effectively protecting that very flank that we were just talking about, that the threat of being cut off of a supply. Supply, of course, is king in this game, so you want to not be in a bad spot. You want to not be cut off. So by moving this here, we're effectively putting this and this under our zone of control, making these hexes more expensive to move through. We're also defending this hex by having our motorized unit here so that we can have a nice corridor of supply that goes all the way through to our panzer over here. Now with that under wraps, we're going to try and move our last motorized division over here. We're going to move him, I think we want to move him as far forward as possible. So let's just go ahead and we'll put him right here at the very limits of his movement, and he will abut next to a security division, a security regiment, sorry, and a what's that? Army HQ. The Army HQ, of course, whenever HQs become next to other units, they are forced to retreat. It doesn't count, I think, as routing, but it basically is the same mechanic as routing. They're forced to relocate to somewhere else where they're safe, so they're not cut off and destroyed. Unless, of course, an HQ, I believe if you surround an HQ and it has nowhere to go, and then you move beside it, I believe it surrenders, but I'm not 100% sure on that rule. So here you'll see these two units are at the end of the limits. They are, however, dangerously close to Vitebsk, and as long as we have supply next turn, we should be able to even go across here and take the city. It is actually more heavily defended than I might like, but the advantage of doing this also is that there's an airfield here. If we can get rid of that airfield, if we can force it to retreat back this way and out of play, that would be great. And also, because of how things are stacked over here, there's not really anything in this area that is really threatening us of defending Vitebsk. So this division, this armor division, should be able to take it all on its own. Now, we have to, of course, we're not done. We're going to move down here, and we're going to do similar things with the southern flank. If I was playing a campaign game, I would probably try and do a nice little envelopment here. I would have sent the 3rd Panzer Group up that way, down that way, and this one over here. Try and cut off this entire group here with a nice little flank, and we would have hopefully encircled these units here and eventually captured them or destroyed them. But we don't really have time for that with only 3 turns, so I think what we're going to do instead, if we take a look... We take a look down here at the southern flank of this whole operation. I'll probably send the 2nd Panzer Group directly towards Minsk, have them capture Minsk, and then if they can, this objective down here. Not exactly sure what it's called, but that one will be the key, or not the key, sorry, but that'll be another option for us. So we'll take Minsk, and then of course head down that way afterwards and try and capture that one, and we'll try and even maybe send a couple of forces over here if we can. We'll see how it all plans out, but this is definitely going to head directly towards Minsk and bypass all of these troops in this pocket right here. Our infantry will, of course, push up against them, and we're going to go ahead and do that just now. While our infantry is doing that, what we're going to be doing is working on our panzers, trying to send them into as far deep as possible. And also, something else I forgot actually to mention, right here is the city of Brest-Litovsk, which is a difficult nut to crack. So instead of attacking it outright with panzers and delaying their movement, I'm going to try to flank the panzers right around the city and just bypass it. But the infantry this turn are going to hit it pretty hard. We're going to try and take it. So let's move the tanks here. We'll try and get them up. But let's start with, as always, the attacks by the infantry. We'll try and force a breach here against the security division. If I can just select the right unit, that would be fantastic. And here we go. Trying to force a breach, and now they've retreated, so that's perfect. We've already opened up a spot for our panzers to move through. So let's go ahead and take that panzer. We'll move this infantry division, and we'll move him right up here. Now we will try this infantry division over here on this fortified unit. Another deliberate attack. They've surrendered, so that's perfect. And we'll try another attack here. We're trying to keep as much movement as possible in our troops, and now we've retreated him as well. So now that we've gotten rid of those 2 units along this and these 2 hexes here, we are able to clear ourselves a breach this way. As before, that is our main objective here, is to get towards Minsk with this southern group. So we'll move our guys up in here, and we'll just take our panzers, and we will let them go for a nice little jog, I guess, out into the open. Yeah, that sounds good to me. They're going to capture some supply and fuel there as well as they move up. And now the dangers of this, of course, as before, is, as we talked about in the north, is we could be cut off if we're not careful. but I'm feeling pretty confident about how things are right now. We also have these guys back here. We have, I think, an entire Panzer Corps that we're going to send our way into kind of this area to make sure we're not cut off from the units on this side and whatnot, and even perhaps surround these units over here. Also, we're going to try and take some of these infantry units, and we're going to try and flank around if we can. If I can even get an attack over here and force this guy out of position, that'd be great. We're going to rout him, actually. Perfect. So now we're going to take these infantry units, and we're going to try and surround Brest-Litovsk. Trying to get trying to keep as much movement as possible, sorry. And we're going to try and move this guy over here now. And now we're going to, if we can't take the city this turn, we're definitely going to threaten to take it next turn. That is going to be our main goal. We might even commit a unit here, perhaps the Das Reich SS Motorized Division next turn, or this turn, on taking the city, which looks like it has 2 rifle divisions and a tank division guarding it. So it will be difficult, especially with that river on our side, causing us a little bit of trouble getting over. The cavalry, sorry, will even move up here, and we will completely surround that city. So these guys down here, we're going to, of course, move up as well. We'll get them headed out. Well, actually, you know what? I was going to move them up here, but we'll probably get them right over here. We'll get them across the river, and then once we're there, we should be able to effectively attack this city. So before we move our armor anymore, let's see if we can take this city, if we can force them to be defeated. Also important to mention now, you'll notice that the city is surrounded by all these guys. There is nowhere for them to escape, but because the city hasn't gone through a turn of being out of supply, because it hasn't been surrounded for a full turn, these units in here in this pocket will be able to escape. If we were to keep them surrounded for a turn for 1 week, then they would be forced to surrender or be destroyed once we take the city. But again, because we didn't do that, because we're all doing it on the first turn, they are going to have a chance to escape as soon as we take the city. So also, this is a good demonstration of being able to launch an attack from multiple hexes. So if I hover over this, you'll notice that I have a unit from this and 2 units here selected. They all have enough movement in order to do a deliberate attack, but I have to hold shift in order to do it. I can't do a hasty attack on this unit. Units from different hexes can only do a deliberate attack, I guess representing the coordination it takes to launch an attack with multiple divisions from multiple areas. So we'll go ahead and try that attack from these multiple areas. You know, we'll even throw in the cavalry division, and we'll throw in this infantry division, and we'll see what happens. Probably overkill, but I want this city. And now that's great. We actually rout all 3 of those. So we committed 80,000 men to the attack, but hey, we got what we wanted. And now the city is ours. So let's just move in here, and we'll take it. Now we have these 2 panzer divisions as well. And we've got tons of room to maneuver. So if we can, I'd like to move. I was going to say I'll move these panzer divisions up right now, and I think I will. We'll try and actually attack. Well, we'll move them both up, and we'll try and force these guys off this road right here. Off this railroad, sorry. Let's just go ahead and do that, and we'll see where that gets us exactly. The reason we're doing this, of course, is, you know, let's try attacking with just 1 and see what happens. We'll attack with the 3rd Panzer Division. Deliberate attack, and hopefully we do rout them. Perfect. So we routed them, and we also pushed back an airbase, which is great. And now we're going to have a little bit of room to maneuver our units up as well. The reason we're doing this, the reason we're attacking these guys, is because I want to make sure that we don't get attacked at the flanks on the next turn, so we don't get cut off any of our units that are up here. So we've moved up a couple hexes here. We're going to keep maneuvering up here, trying to get at least towards, if I can get right here this turn, that would be great. If I could set up a defensive line around here, and then next turn push up to Minsk, that would be the best. But you know, you have to work with what you've got, and right now we're just going to try and get to at least this tile right here. So we'll try and move up here, push more infantry out of our way. This time we'll do a hasty attack, and we'll retreat them as well. And now we'll try and that'll be the end of his movement there for our guy. But we have quite a bit of maneuver left still. We'll even move up here, force these guys back as well as we bypass them, and we'll try and push this infantry division out of the way again. So I mean, as things can be expected, everything is going about as well as it could. If we keep moving these guys up here, you'll notice that these tanks, they kind of went through the forest. So I mean, we probably should have waited before moving them up. They don't have a lot of maneuver left. So instead of moving them up towards Minsk, what we're actually going to do is we're going to try and go for that encirclement. So we'll move this guy over here. And we'll leave this tank right about here, I think, actually. And by doing that, I hope to basically just make sure that no one, or at least these units, are cut off next turn if we can effectively get a surround from this direction. That'll be the main key. So we're going to go down here. I'll move up a couple more guys. We'll actually see if we can get these infantry up here, but I don't think they can move very far. This guy, in fact, has no movement at all. Yeah, these guys don't have any movement left, really. So we'll just try and move up one unit. We'll move up this one here, the 267th Infantry Division, into that swamp, and we'll hopefully try and keep anyone from retreating back too far. If we can get these, no, the cavalry can't move very far either, actually. So let's keep moving these guys up if we can. He's got some maneuver left, so let's try and take this city, this little town, sorry. We do a deliberate attack on that one, and we should be able to push them back as well. So another retreat there for us. I mean, when you're playing as the Germans, you know, it's a matter of just, it's not a matter of, you know, can I win this fight? It's more a matter of how much movement can I get while winning this fight? If you do deliberate attacks all the time, it's not the most efficient way to do it. And, you know, you get away with hasty attacks a fair number of times. So I think that what we need to do now is move up these guys here, our motorized infantry, try and get them up as far as possible as well. We can even get this guy up here. I think this tank will be a prime target for our guys. I need to turn off infantry movement as well, or not infantry, you know, counter movement, so they don't have to watch these guys move every single time we want to move them up. We'll try a hasty attack. I'm feeling a hasty attack, and we have in fact routed that tank division. So early on, I think if actually, now that I've done that, now that I've said that, I remember the tank divisions being especially weak in this game for the Russians. It's a very simple matter of being able to destroy them, or at least rout them early on. So we'll try and get this guy up now. Try and get up to that river if we can. Like I said, that is what I would like the objective to be. If we can get up to that river, kind of threaten Minsk, that would be fantastic. And it looks like we should be able to do it here. Let's go for another. We could actually, no, we can't even do a deliberate attack. So we got one hasty attack in us, and we've routed them again. So we're doing quite well here, but we're out of movement now. We have nowhere, we can't move any further because this unit is still here. Actually, no, we can't destroy that either. So we're going to have to come down here, get our last few guys, and try and get them as far up as possible as well. This guy actually can't move very far at all. Oh, it's a regiment, that's why. See, you got to pay attention to those things. So this little regiment here, he doesn't have as much movement as the division does. So we'll move him up here, and hopefully in the next following turns, we'll be able to get him linked up with everyone else over here. The last tank, the Panzer Division here, the last Panzer Division should be able to get right about there, or we can try and go here and actually attack these units here. I mean, again, I'm not really concerned about what's going to happen on the counterattack, but I feel like it would be a good decision to kind of push these guys back as far as possible so that in the future we're able to move, have the best movement possible. So we have only a hasty attack available. Let's go ahead, we'll retreat them again, or for the first time I suppose, and we'll be able to actually move right here. And I'm happy with that. So we didn't quite get to the river like I wanted, but we got pretty close. We got one guy to the river. Not a perfect plan, but hey, it could have been worse, I suppose. That is the motto of the day. It could have been worse. And if we look at these guys here, you'll see the HQ. Something I should have mentioned as well. The yellow lines are units that are equal to it. The blue lines are units that are under it. The purple line is the unit you have selected. The red lines are units that are out of command distance of it. So this Panzer Corps, I think we actually want to go ahead and move all the way up to perhaps about here. I'm not very worried about it being attacked in the coming turns. So putting it with that regiment is probably not a bad idea. But you usually want to move your units towards towards some kind of a friendly unit that can defend a headquarter, because the headquarters, of course, cannot defend themselves at all. Now, this guy down here, we're going to move him. I think we're going to move him. Well, we could even get him all the way up here, and he might still be within range of that headquarters. We can always move the headquarters up a little bit more too if he's not in range, but we might be able to get this entire surround on these units all on our own here. Let's see, he's still out of range, so we'll go ahead and we'll move the headquarters up just a little bit more. He's not in a good position. He's not going to be able to defend himself, but at least all of our units over here are in radius of him, except, of course, for our one guy here. If we can just get a... Okay, we can't get him, so we can't move this guy anymore. The 167th is attached to the 47th Panzer Division, or the Panzer Corps, sorry, but we can't move him anymore. But he's out of command radius for this turn, but that's not a big deal. He's not going to be fighting anyone down there. Up here, it looks like we can probably move over these guys now. We should probably move these guys up here. Actually, everyone's still in command radius. Nice. So I'll probably move this guy over here, the command headquarters. Here, let me demonstrate by way of pen. Probably move him over here. We have, of course, one guy up here, and we'll probably spend the rest of the time putting the other panzers down in these areas here to try and complete the surround. In order to surround a unit, you only have to cut off its ability to reach or to be supplied through these friendly hexes. So in this case, we're going to take, actually, if we can, this infantry division right here and move him into this hex here. Now, the advantage of doing that is what we've just done is, as you can see here, this unit, this entire area is now cut off. There are no more red hexes connecting the red hexes over here. They are completely cut off by this nice little line right here, which means that on the next turn, these units in here are all going to be in a pocket, and they're not going to be supplied anymore by the main supply depots or whatever they're called in this game. I can't remember the exact terminology, but they won't be getting like the national supply from the rest of the Soviet Union. They'll have to be on their own with whatever supplies they have. That makes them both weaker for us to take over, and also it makes it easier for us to defeat them. And when we do capture them, when we do attack them, it allows us to capture them instead of for them to be able to retreat and route back. So that's basically how things are going to go. I'm going to finish up the rest of the turn on my own, I think. You get the idea of what we're going to do, though. I mean, we moved all the panzers into position pretty much. We are going to take the rest of the panzers, probably the rest of the 3rd Panzer Group, which is these green ones up here. We're probably going to spread them down this way, maybe send a few more over here. And, of course, we're going to also make sure that we have enough to keep this pocket a pocket and not allow them to escape. Otherwise, we're going to just make some attacks along here with these units here from the 9th Armies and I believe this is the 2nd Army in the blue. And we're going to just try and condense this pocket as much as possible and make it uncomfortable for them to be in there. So that's going to be the first episode of this series. I'm probably going to do 2 more episodes with the series. And then we will, of course, go on. And perhaps if this works out, we'll try a full campaign and see how everything works and how it all sounds and everything. So for those of you who are here watching, for those of you who stayed until the end, I really appreciate it. Thank you so much. And I hope you guys all have a great day. And I hope to see you again very soon. Thank you.